So if you didn't notice from my shirt and my extreme thirst, I ran a half marathon yesterday, and it was a really gorgeous course. It ran out through the countryside, and the route actually gave me exposure to a couple scenes that I want to check out. So the light is getting quite tasty right now, and I say we bug out of this room and let's go do some in-the-field photography. I've got a location in mind. Okay, I'll show you what I've got my sights set on. I don't know how well you'll see it through this camera, but out here across the field where you see the ragweed is nice and in bloom, and there is a really cool little barn scene out there. It's small from here, right? It's just this little barn right there. But I'll magnify it for you now so you can see it through the 100 to 400 millimeter lens that I'll use to shoot it. And I think I'll have to have a little walk out through this field to get a little closer and make the photo more about the barn and that little rural scene. But I'll have a little walk out here and see what we can see. I'll have to get just a little bit closer. Still closer. Still closer. No, I'm just kidding, this is close enough. And thank God for that, because my car is now fully like a mile and a half down the road. Well, if everything goes according to plan, this will be an early shot, so it'll give me a little bit of late evening, dusky sunlight to hike back to my car to. Unlike that video I made a few weeks ago where I was on my motorcycle. Ooh, that trek back across the field in the dark was a rough one. So it is a 8:15, which puts it not quite an hour until sunset. So I've given myself a little time not only to get here to the correct spot, but also to sit and enjoy the scenery for a little bit. Let me get my shoes tied and relax my legs for just a minute, because as I mentioned, I did just run a half marathon yesterday, and these suckers are pooped. I'll get them stretched out. And then I'll show you the photograph as I've got it framed up, as I conceive it, and walk you through some of the elements a little bit. Well, like I mentioned, I first got this photo idea when I was running through here yesterday on the half marathon. The course ran right on this road, and I was also organizing and conducting some photography for the half marathon organizers while I was running it. And This was just a spot that I couldn't resist pulling off, getting out my cell phone camera, which was the camera that I had with me at the time, and photographing runners as they ran in front of this field of golden flowers. Something I probably wouldn't have considered unless I'd taken the time to do that was that from a distance, this looks like a field that's totally like packed full of flowers. But as you get here closer and walk through it, you realize there's, 10 feet probably between each plant, right? It's not until you sort of perceive it from a distance and in the aggregate that you perceive it as like a full, chock full of flowers field. So I knew that in order to accomplish that effect today, I was going to have to shoot the barn that I'm shooting from a really long distance. Okay, it's almost peak shooting time, so before I get myself into a big darn hurry to take the shot, I'll walk you through the shot that I'm making really quickly, because some of these things may seem familiar to you if you've followed my work. There are things that I've photographed independently before, but never all together and never from this perspective with the flowers in the front. Let's have a look at what's on the camera. So as I mentioned, my shooting plan for today involved coming out earlier than I normally do. I'm not shooting towards the sun, so the scene will be receiving and reflecting light. It'll be very bright. The sky behind it will be dark and colorful in the early part of the evening, which is sort of a nice change of pace for me. Normally there's a little bit of stress trying to locate things in the direction of the sunset, including one photo where I managed to foreground this water tower. You're not going to be able to see my finger. Where I managed to foreground, I'll try to put a demonstration on screen, where I managed to foreground this water tower with the sun setting directly behind it, right? Obviously not from this perspective, from way over there. This is like an old antique water tower, and it's super cool, and I'll show you the photo that I made of it. I made an original photograph, and then I also processed it into a 3-part triptych panel that I printed on canvas and sold at our local gallery. So I'll try to put some media of those things together now so you get a sense of how I've worked these elements before. And the barns you see in the foreground have also received significant attention from me. They're very easy to access. I think the property is like unoccupied, so I usually don't have issue getting out onto the property to make the photographs. And there's are several barns on the same property, so I visited it many times. It's like an old standby that I know I can go to when the light suddenly becomes great and I'm just sitting at home and I think, oh, I've got to get out and photograph something. That's a good standby photo subject for me. But today, I'm incorporating all of those elements into one photo with the flowers in a way that I've never shot them before. So it's always good to keep an eye out on the things you've studied before, look at them from different approaches, and think of ways you can stay on top of your game and keep your material fresh, as they say. So when I'm shooting in my home county, I find that I'm always shooting in vertical aspect ratio so that I can share on Instagram, and in horizontal aspect ratio because I assemble all the horizontal aspect ratio photos from my home county to make a calendar at the end of every year. So I'm going to shoot this in 2 aspect ratios. The vertical I'm looking forward to the most because I can feature the most of the sky, which turned out perfectly for me tonight. But the vertical I'll hold on to later just in case I need it. And I can't quite zoom in as tight on the vertical as I like. So when I present this image to you at the end of the video, you'll see a crop into what you're seeing on the camera now. Okay, that was 1/30th of a second at f10 and ISO 100, all the way out at 400 millimeters. Now, unfortunately, the sky actually looks really gray and boring here in this photo. So once again, the horizontal aspect ratio photo is a backup. So I've got that locked away, and I'll switch the camera orientation around and work on what I'm really seeing in this scene, which is a nice vertical aspect that features more of the sky and more of the flowers. And I believe what I'll do here is open the aperture up a little bit to put the foreground flowers a little more out of focus. So I'm going to shoot this at f. I don't want to go all the way wide open. I think I'll shoot this at like maybe f6.3 or something like that. What a spectacular scene. I love the way that the barns are catching the light and reflecting it back. Nice golden light that really brings out that burnt red color, the texture of that aged old wood. That one I have for a 40th of a second at f6.3, just getting the aperture blades a little bit in front of the circle, right, for a little bit of extra sharpness. And as an interesting bonus, I can see, I've never noticed this, but there's a view to our local hometown memorial, the George Rogers Clark Memorial down here, and I can also foreground these field flowers in front of that. So I'll try that shot, and I'll show you how that turns out after I show you the images from shooting this side. Always cool to find brand new things right here in your own backyard. I must have shot this memorial 1,000 times, and I thought from every single possible way. But I really like this one, and I think it's going to play well to the home crowd. This is actually in the foreground of the photo is our local water treatment plant, but we'll keep that a secret between me and you. Well, my friends, the sun is just about to set below the horizon. There's no color here on the main subject or my fascinating second subject that I discovered to shoot tonight, so I'm gonna have to call that our wraps. But it's so great to get out into well-trod areas that I thought I knew like the back of my hand and rediscover them in new ways. If spring is a season for anything, it's a time for rediscovering those favorite things from the past in new dressings. And with that thought, I'll leave you for today. I'll show you the images now, and until I see you next time, you guys keep an eye out and a foot forward. Thank you so much for watching.